everyone, I'm Lauren Nile, and I'd like to share with you just a few of my thoughts on what I believe is the inordinate amount of attention that Donald Trump has gotten over the past several months, and indeed which he continues to get even to this day. And I'd like to speak specifically to members of the progressive media, because it seems to me that in spending so much time on Mr. Trump and covering the things that he says, which so many of us find offensive, if not outrageous, we are wasting precious time that, in my view, should be spent on much more important, pressing social issues. Now, you have to cover him, of course, because he is running for the highest office in the land, and he is currently the Republican frontrunner. So yes, of course, we have to know. We have to be an informed public. But I would ask you, once you've covered it thoroughly, leave it. But analyzing it and reanalyzing it, televising it and retelevising it, is, in my view, just a precious waste of time. So, we should know, and just take for granted, that Mr. Trump is going to say the things that he says. They're going to come out of his mouth. You see, because all of us show by what we say and what we do what is on our inside. And Mr. Trump is no exception. So we should just take for granted that he's going to say the kinds of things that he's been saying, and not cover it and recover it, analyze it and reanalyze it, using our precious time. For example, if you asked me to show all of the compassion that Mother Teresa showed toward all with whom she met, lo though I may wish to, I could not, because I have not spent the years of prayer that Mother Teresa spent. If you asked me to show the forgiveness that President Mandela showed toward his jailers, I probably could not, because I have not spent 27 years in a jail cell in self-reflection, thousands upon thousands of hours reflection. If you asked me to show the grace that Pope Francis just showed on his recent visit here to the United States, and indeed that he shows everyone all the time, I may really wish to be able to, but I couldn't, because I have not spent the years in meditation and reflection and prayer that Pope Francis has spent. And Donald Trump is no exception. He's showing us what's on his inside by the things that he says, the things that come out of him. So, for example, it should come as no surprise that he called Rosie O'Donnell and has referred to other women as pigs and dogs and slobs and disgusting animals. That should be no surprise to us. It should come as no surprise to us that he totally disparaged Latino Americans, and specifically Mexican Americans, and even more specifically Mexican American or Mexican immigrants. That should be no surprise to us that he called them, in general, rapists and drug dealers. Even though he himself received multiple deferments during the Vietnam War in order to avoid service, it shouldn't shock us that Mr. Trump was totally disrespectful of Senator McCain's service, and even Mr. McCain's time, his 5 years as a prisoner of war in Vietnam. You know, that shouldn't surprise us. It shouldn't surprise us that he said, I like people who win, not people who get caught. He's showing us what's on his inside. The fact that he referred to, or at least made inference to Megyn Kelly's hormonal level, or inferred that it was probably that time of the month for her, or something like that, as an explanation of why, in his mind, she asked him what he considered to be hard questions at the first Republican presidential debate, is not surprising to me, and it shouldn't be to any of us. He has said regarding Carly Fiorina, look at that face. Would anyone vote for that? Can you imagine that, the face of our next president? Of course he would say something like that, given his track record, with women specifically, and in general. He has said that the people who are running our country are stupid people. Mr. Trump spent months during the last presidential election cycle trying to make the case that the President Obama, is not an American. He said, I have people that have been studying it and they cannot believe what they're finding. He went on to say that he had a team of people on the ground in Hawaii, and they'll reveal some very interesting things, of course, presumably about the president's birth. And the fact that he refuses now to talk about what his team of people in Hawaii found on the ground there, he just won't take questions on that, and he's never revealed to us what that team of people, if indeed he had a team, of people in Hawaii actually found, that is not a shocker. You know, people were upset that he didn't correct a questioner at a fairly recent town hall, a questioner who said that we have a problem in America and it's Muslims, and then who went on to verbally state that President Obama is a Muslim. I'm not surprised that Mr. Trump didn't correct that person. It's not on his inside to do such a thing. And then when later asked by a reporter, why didn't you correct that person, for Mr. Trump to have replied, some people have said it already happened, frankly, i.e. the election of a Muslim president. But of course he wouldn't agree with that. That is just consistent with who Mr. Trump is as a person. He's more recently called Marco Rubio a clown. And of course Mr. Trump won't apologize for any of those things. In my view, based on all of those things that he says, the way he behaves, he's showing us that he lacks the emotional intelligence and the emotional maturity to behave in a more civil, a more compassionate, a more emotionally mature manner. So rather than just covering and recovering all the things that he says and does over and over again, I would request our colleagues in the progressive media to cover it, as I say, for the first 24 hours, and then just make a list. Make a list of what we might refer to as Trumpisms, if you will. And just, when it gets time, when it gets closer to the election, go over that list. And you might spend some time on it at that point, really reminding people about the character of the man who is currently the Republican frontrunner for President of the United States. Why? Because the person who takes that office should be a person of maturity and clarity of thought, and a person of high moral integrity who would not engage in the kind of behaviors and say the kinds of things that Mr. Trump has consistently said. He's like a powder keg. If he gets angry at you, if you anger him, he goes after you. We've seen that time and time again. He starts attacking. Can you imagine if a world leader does something that Mr. Trump disagrees with? What the consequences might be? It's frightening. So that's it. That's my message to progressive media. Please, cover Mr. Trump, but don't give him an inordinate amount of coverage. We need to spend our attention on our pressing social issues of the day. Thanks so much for listening. Please tune in again soon. Until then, I'm Lauren Nile. Take care, everyone.